This is TWIS. This Week in Science, episode number 1048, recorded on Wednesday, February 18th, 2026. When do we know enough? Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Kiki, and today we will fill your head with snakes, clam spit, and hot frogs. But first, thanks to our amazing Patreon sponsors for their generous support of TWIS. You can become a part of the Patreon community at patreon.com/thisweekinscience. Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. When can we say that we know enough? To make a decision, to make a claim, to stop asking questions? Will there ever be a moment where we step back and say, I think I've had enough as of today? Well, you should know that that moment will never arrive here on This Week in Science. Coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind that can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I want to know what's happening. What's happening? What's happening this week in science? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening this week in science?
Good science to you, Kiki.
And a good science to you too, Blair, and everyone out there. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Science. TWIS, as we like to call ourselves around some parts of the internets. It's been quite a week. It's always quite a week. There's always stuff and things, but I have to say that the Olympics this year has been such a joy to be watching and paying attention to. There's big air freestyle. People are flipping and throwing themselves off of mountains with sticks attached to their feet. It's it's very fun to watch people not die. And additionally, and people have mentioned this a few times around and about, that it's just wonderful to see the American competitors competing with respect and compassion and celebrating the wins of other competitors and being so honorable that they're the kind of people that you want to be role models for the next generation of American kids. So I just want to say a big thank you to all of those incredible athletes that are out there using thin layers of melted water to propel themselves across surfaces into the air, and all the work that they have done. Sports. It's sports.
You know, the Olympics are interesting to me because the competitors are often, not every sport, but a lot of the sports competitors are very, very young. And they have their whole lives ahead of them after their Olympic career has ended. So I am usually very interested to hear what happens to them after that. Some become coaches, some become commentators, some end up TV hosts, right? There's a bunch of different things that people do, but I would be really interested to hear what the majority of Olympians move on and do. Like, are they like teaching like high school chemistry? Are they like florist? Like, what's going on? Because it dominates their lives for the first, decade and a half, 2 decades of their life. And then it's kind of over. And I've always been really curious about that.
Well, I think that one of the things that that the Olympics shows us is, yes, the Olympics is like the top of the top. It's the biggest competition that any of these athletes go to. Everybody comments on how much different it is than any other competition. But that said, just getting there is an honor. And as much as everybody's like, oh, participation awards, whatever, oh, the millennials, there is the honor of going to the Olympics. There is the honor of having worked so hard in your sport that you are at the point of mastery, and competing with all the other top people around the world, which is absolutely incredible. And so these individuals I think very interestingly, like many scientists, where I got a PhD and I decided that that was not where I wanted to go. And so I left the academic route and stopped doing research, but I have always loved science and I found a new way to include it in my life and to help other people appreciate it. And so I think there are many ways that the skills that are learned and the discipline and the I I don't know, the cooperative nature of training and learning and competing, that these skills go into many areas of people's lives. I mean, some people are like, they're architects and they have this other sports life. You know,
Mhm,
it depends on
mhm.
the sport, but yeah. Oh,
One of
yeah.
my favorite moments so far has been, this I think she was a speed skater after she medaled talking to the kind of like the media, and she was
I
holding
know.
a 3-year-old, 4-year-old who kept hitting the microphone out of the
Yeah.
way, grabbing her face and her mouth and her headband and
Mhm.
flopping around, and she was just she was cool as a cucumber, just kept talking to people like moms do, and I actually did really love that because it was a moment of like, man, she trained to do this, kept in shape, like, and medaled all while having this very young kid at home. And it seems like, he's very attached. She's very hands-on still with him. It was very funny.
But that's where we are now, and I love that, that we have LGBTQ plus competitors, that we have moms, that we have people who work other jobs, that we have all these representatives of different ways of living out there showing us that you can be a champion, you know, you can be one of the best at something in the world, and that isn't the only thing that you do, and I think it is, you know, I think it's beautiful. And it also flies in the face of a whole bunch of stereotypes. There was a question asked by one reporter of a female athlete, say asking, you know, "Oh, well, you won 2 silvers. Is that 2 silvers won or 2 golds lost?" And she just her cackle, her laugh at him was the most amazing thing I think I have heard in a very long time, and she just was like, "Oh boy, how do oh, you fine sir. Let me tell you."
Oh my
You know, but she
gosh.
you know, and she had to put you know, she had to put a little smack down, and she did it in the most, you know, professional way. It was wonderful. Absolutely incredible. But anyway, I think it's wonderful. There are I fingers crossed that so many of these young athletes will have long careers
Mhm.
in sports. If not, maybe they will go on and do other incredible things. There are more things for people to do. There's a whole world out there. They could always do science, but
Yeah, yeah. It's somebody in flying out in our Discord says our curling silver medalist is a lab tech. So there you
oh,
go.
that's amazing. I love knowing that. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
mean, curling out of all of the winter sports where you could have a day job, I think curling is the one. I love it. That's my favorite
Everybody
part of the Winter Olympics.
people love curling now.
Yeah,
Like, you watch the
it's great.
Olympics and everybody comes away going, "I am so fascinated with curling." My new favorite sport is skeleton. The skeleton is,
Oh, yes. Yeah.
yeah, head down all the way,
Mhm. Mhm.
70 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour. It's
Sounds
amazing.
illegal, but that's all right.
It's it sounds rickety and dangerous, and I
Mm.
love that people wanna do that. It's fantastic. But we wanna do this show, so we're gonna talk about science tonight, and I have stories about, life on Mars, water in the solar system, got some, environmental stories and some, golden fleece maybe, or maybe it's golden clam spit, and then I've also got, uh
Yum.
yum, and then I've got some brain and, neuroscience at the end of the show. What do you have, Blair? What's in the animal corner?
Oh, I have snakes. I have zebra finches, and then I have frogs. So,
The
just
menagerie.
a
Yay.
usual menagerie of items.
That is fun. I like it. All right. Well, as we jump into the show here, I do want to remind everyone that subscribing to the TWIS podcast, wherever the favorite podcast platform you have is, it's great. You can get the edited version of the show, and I hope that you share the podcast with your friends. Additionally, we broadcast live streaming every Wednesday evening, 8 p.m. Pacific time-ish on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. And so you can go there, subscribe on those platforms if that's where you are, and find us in video form. Whew. And our website is twis.org if you want show notes and other information about the show. Anyway, look for This Week in Science. That's where we are. Ready for the science?
Yes.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. I'm going to start the show with space news. So, Blair, do you remember last year when Justin brought a story about possible life on Mars? And we were arguing back and forth about the evidence, and he was saying, but they found all this evidence and it's just so close, and so it's got to be old, like there used to be life on Mars and they found the chemical evidence. And I was like, blah,
Right,
blah,
right,
blah.
right. Yes.
Okay, well, there's a new report out, and it has been published this in astrobiology this last week, and the report has done a new analysis of curiosity samples, and they again are, and this is using the data that was used for the 2025 announcement. These are long chain organic molecules that have been found. They have been looking at these molecules in a way that they're trying to find all the different processes that would potentially create the molecules as they are the kinds of molecules that come from biological processes. However, they also come from not biological processes.
Yes.
And so you have to make sure that the processes that are going on are biological, if you're or that went on to lead to this chemical fossil evidence, that you have dotted all the T's and crossed all the I's, right? I know, dotted the I's and crossed the T's. I know. So the researchers, this group who have looked from NASA's Goddard Space Center, Alexander Pavlov and his colleagues have been looking at the questions of, could there once have been more of these components in the stone, and where could they have come from? So they're trying to do radiolysis experiments to figure out how radiation, which would be impacting the Martian surface, would have broken down anything that could have been in a bacterial mat on the surface of the planet for a really long time. So if, say, you have a coastal region and the ocean recedes and there's algae or biological mats left on rocks, right? Over time, just the air, the sun, radiation are all going to break those things down, and they are all going to do so in a way that it impacts the chemistry of what remains. And so over time, you have a change in the chemistry of what those biological mats are. It's not the same as what it was when it was alive. So you have biological deposition or non-biological deposition. They looked at these mechanisms, transport from interplanetary dust, meteorites, atmospheric haze, fallout, hydrothermal, chemistry, and also reactions that lead to this serpentine kind of molecule, this serpentinization. And they couldn't approach what has been inferred as the original quantity of molecules on the planet's surface. And so this is a really interesting point in that NASA and the researchers who are talking about this signature of molecular life potentially, or the historical signature of life on the surface based on chemicals, they haven't found very much at all. Like, it's really not a dominant signal at all. Like, they've searched a lot of places and there was nothing. They've searched other places and found it. So it's kind of haphazard. And so there are a lot of researchers still who are like, this still could be noise, right? This still could be just something that's happening and we don't really know how. But once again, the researchers are saying, as carefully as researchers can, we've done all the tests that we can think of to cut out all the other possible explanations, and we can't. And so, based on their analysis, they're saying there could have been molecular life, biological life.
Yeah, basically they're saying it's still not life.
Well, it could. I mean, they're not saying that either.
We haven't found evidence. We still haven't found evidence it's not
that
life.
It's not life.
Yes.
Or that it, but we haven't found evidence that it
really is
life.
So this is my question: is if bacterial life were to persist on Mars, I would expect that it had resistance or healing mechanisms or some sort of adaptation related to the amount of radiation that bombards that planet.
But if one of the things that happened is that Mars lost its atmosphere, of course, over a very, very long time.
So so this is saying it's like way before.
So would the bacteria have been able to adapt to a loss of atmosphere that would not have protected it from, and a loss of any kind of magnetosphere that it may have had, may or may not have had?
So the implication there is that was a mass extinction event.
Yeah. That at some point in time, if there was life on Mars, it all died out. And so that's the big thing so far, is nobody is saying there is life on Mars now.
Right.
Nobody is saying that.
And that's my other follow-up question is like, would everyone be as psyched for finding extraterrestrial life if it's all dead? Like, everyone wants to find alien life, right?
Well, there are different, it depends on how science and space exploration go forward, where if there is the history of life, what it does is on another planet is it supports the idea that panspermia happened, that Earth wasn't the only place in the solar system or maybe even the universe that life got a foothold. And that is a very exciting idea. I mean, it's going to wreak havoc with different groups of people and religion and other things like that, flat earthers, etc. But
pesky theories that get in the way.
But so what I'm thinking is, if the researchers, are like, we can't really say until we go to Mars or we do a sample return mission, which all those samples are sitting on the surface of Mars from the mission that's been going around and drilling samples and dropping them on the ground. Like, we were supposed to send a mission to go pick them up, right? And now we're not. And so those samples are sitting there. And if we could do a sample return mission or send robots or even people at some point in time to look at those samples and analyze them, maybe finding that there's evidence of past bacterial life on the Martian surface, or at least arguing that we need those samples in order to determine it, would like ease up some funding to allow that work to happen. As it is right now, the funding's not there, and we can't go any further. And this is it right now from afar. The life on a planet issue is very different, because then we have the question of, geez, how much did we destroy already, stomping around on a habited planet?
Oopsie.
And how do we? And okay, everybody came, or our robots stay there, but how do we go there, do work, and come back safely if there is extant life, if there's life on the planet right now? So if there's life, that's actually more difficult.
Yes. Although I would argue that there being extinct life on Mars is not a good argument for humans to be there. Like,
No,
I think that
no, not at all.
there's this
Aside
expectation
from
that like,
just
ah,
going.
see, there's life here. Like we can build cities on Mars. It's all chill. Like, no, they're all dead.
No. No, Mars is still death to humans, like,
Yeah.
totally. That is not where I mean, some people wanna go, but most people, you're really gonna have a hard time there. It's not gonna be easy. Goldasator, let's make cloud cities on Venus. I'm for that. I think that would be fun. That'd be great. Um,
Bespin 2.
yeah. Additionally, though, talking about the panspermia idea and also, where did water on our planet come from? And we have, there's ideas and evidence that comets from our outer solar system and meteors from our inner solar system, that they were part of bringing water to the planet, right? So a new study this last week that came out of the Auburn University Department of Physics, researchers published in, where did they publish? They published in the Astrophysical Journal Letters their study, water production rates of the interstellar object, 3I Atlas. So the Atlas comet, which is an interstellar interloper that has made people really curious for the last couple of years, the Atlas comet comes from outside of our solar system, and it's super cool. And there's like we had 2 other interstellar visitors that were really dry or really they had different makeups. And this one, they've realized by looking at it in infrared that they with the NASA's Swift ultraviolet optical telescope, they were able to see that it is shooting out water 40 kilograms a second, really, really far from the sun in the outer solar system, where most comets that have been formed in our solar system do not release water. So most comets, they get agitated or they're already moving and they have their orbits and they come from the far, far outer solar system and they get closer and closer to the sun. And the sun's, a hot, what is it? A giant ball.
Toddy. Yeah, a hot toddy. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not remembering that they might be Giants lyrics. They change it.
The sun is a massive
Plasma.
incandescent gas.
Incandescent plasma. There we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um,
A gigantic nuclear furnace.
And so as distant frozen objects get closer and closer, they start to outgas and release water. And usually it's much closer to the sun. And so what the researchers are excited about is like, oh, wow, this is different. So what does this mean about the layering and the composition of this interstellar comet? What does it tell us about where the comet came from? And can we start to, with looking at these different interstellar interlopers, to kind of figure out where the conditions that were existing, where they came from or where they've been, by how they interact and act while they're in our solar system. So anyway, it's also, I think, very interesting that water is being sprayed into our solar system like a giant cometary fire hose by an object from out of our solar system.
Are we going to get any of that water? How does that work?
It just goes out there. I don't
Just
know.
goes. Psh.
It's gonna turn into it's just gonna vaporize, right? Just gas away.
It doesn't like spray onto the atmosphere and some of it hangs out and then
What atmosphere?
Ours.
No, it's far away. It's far away.
Eventually,
Maybe, but I mean, if we go
know.
through, it's like, so that's the comet tail, right? Is we see that jet of outgassing and vaporized water and yeah, when we fly through comet tails, we get meteor showers, and yeah, we get a little bit of that water in the process.
It'd be cool if you could trace through like isotopes or anything like that and say like this water is 2% from outer space.
That would be so cool. And not just solar system outer space, but outer space.
Yeah.
Someplace else.
Came a long way.
That'd be so cool. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, water from outer space and not life on Mars. Okay. Tell me about snakes.
Yes. So this study,
Why are you laughing?
I'm laughing because it's called Antipathy Towards Snakes. Your parents likely talked you into that at an early age.
Oh.
So they did a study of 100 kindergarten age children, and they believe that this study suggests that kids at that age generally think of snakes differently than they do other animals, but hearing negative or objectifying language contributes to it. And hearing language that talks about it like any other animal can nullify it. So it seems very plastic still at the kindergarten age. So this is a 3-part project. They had 5-year-olds, their parents, and pictures of snakes and descriptive language. Before they gave them a task, the parents had to look through a picture book of snakes with their child, and they read children the storybook about a day in the life of a snake. And so the storybook either referred to snakes like an object with it pronouns, didn't talk about feelings or thoughts, or more like a person with she pronouns and talked about thoughts and feelings. And when parents use negative language, children were encouraged to think about snakes as different from humans, and they found that objectifying language in the storybook had the same effect. But kids generally thought that snakes were similar to other non-human animals. They just lumped them in like other animals. So then they did a second study with different subjects. They took away the picture book and the storybook. They just gave the kids the initial task of talking to their parents. And afterwards, they did not think that snakes were similar to humans or other animals. And so the 5-year-olds in Western cultures think that snakes are different from other animals and have negative and objectifying language that contribute to it. So the expectation there is that if you have exposure to snakes and you learn about their needs and you talk about them like other animals, you can actually, quote, inoculate against negative attitudes towards snakes, which of course can help with care and respect for the animals, which of course can help with conservation of those animals. Over 450 of the about 4,000 identified snake species are endangered or threatened. And so snakes in general need a lot of help. They need better PR from this whole situation. A lot of parents admitted to wanting to dispose of snakes, we'll say, if they saw one in their backyard as opposed to relocating them, right? And so just a general expectation that snakes are different from other animals. This study is saying that the parents' attitude or adults' attitude or the media or whatever we're exposing our children to is what's really making that happen. Now, the reason I brought this study is that there's been a lot of studies about antipathy towards snakes and spiders specifically. They usually lump them together. And I actually recall reporting on one, and I was like, oh, let me see which study that was. And I couldn't even find it because there's so many. I think it's this one from 2015, but I'm not sure. But there's a lot of studies out there indicating that there's an evolutionary reason that children actually have an innate fear of snakes and spiders.
Right.
And
There was a study that was like, everybody is afraid of snakes because we have it's instinctual.
Exactly, yes. And so I believe it was this 2015 study where they showed almost like ink blots to people of different ages, including very young children, and they elicited a fear response if it looked kind of like a snake or a spider. So the expectation was that evolutionarily, from a very young age, we have been taught that this particular body shape is dangerous and it should be feared. Of course, there's also other studies throughout the years. So I found 2019, antipathy towards snake and turning antipathy to fascination. I found in 2011, people aren't born afraid of spiders and snakes. October 2017, fear of spiders and snakes is deeply embedded. Like there's been so much study about this, and I feel
Back
like
and forth and back and forth, and
we have nothing. This is like red wine is good for you, coffee is good for you, right? Oh no, it's bad for you. Like it's just back and forth. Ultimately, there's an issue with snakes in particular, and I've recognized this as a person in zoo education for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And this happened with bugs too, where a lot of young kids might act afraid, confused, because they move different from any other animals. So I get it. The initial intention is like, or the initial reaction is that it's creepy or different. And that's just the initial reaction though. Like kids are much quicker for you to be able to say, oh, this is a snake. Her name is Cleo. She's a king snake. She's not venomous. In fact, she'd love it if you pet her with 2 fingers. She's really smooth. Like all these sorts of things. Oh, she's smelling you with her tongue. Did you know snakes can smell with their tongue? And like kids are there. They're with it.
Yeah.
But if you try to do that to an adult, like, I don't know, my mother.
Hi, Mom.
Nothing doing, right? And I think that's more what this is about, is that there's more plasticity to fear in youth than there is in adulthood. And I really think that's what this is about.
Yeah. Okay. But let me counter this with, and I'm not, as somebody who grew up in the country and had, farmland, lots of gopher snakes around, which are really not dangerous for people. Right?
That's what's on the screen right now.
Yeah. And they're sweet. And I laugh still remembering the Easter that my dad caught a gopher snake when we were hunting for eggs, and then it peed all over him, and it was smelly. And my dad was like, ah, what? And he let the snake go and everything was fine. But he showed me that snakes were not scary. But then I learned about rattlesnakes. And I learned, which were the Western rattlesnake is actually a species that's venomous and of concern. That, yes, you leave them alone, but if you're a kid or an animal or whatever running around and you surprise...
Oh, it happens all the time. Yeah.
Right. And I used to go run around with my dad at his construction job sites in the foothills of California, where there's all this grass, rolling hills, and lots of rattlesnake territory. There were rattlesnakes near my house growing up too, on the train tracks, and rattlesnakes and black widow spiders, the ones with the danger attached to them, were the ones I learned to be afraid of. But I think that spread out to all the others. But I'm not afraid of daddy longlegs. I'm not afraid of a gopher snake. But I also, and there's some cute little snakes out there. They're great, the little snakes. But there's a lot of danger noodles.
Yes, but I think that's exactly, you've hit on it again, Kiki, because I think it's about, like, not to say like knowledge is power, but like the more you know about something, the less scary it becomes. It's also why people that go to college generally become more progressive and less racist. Like it's just like, it's all of the same stuff. It's the more you learn about different types of people, different types of animals, different types of whatever, the less scary it is. The first time you went to change a tire on a car by yourself, you were probably terrified. And then the next time it was a little bit less scary and a little bit less scary. Like the more you know about something, the less scary it is, period. Right? So like if you learn about snakes, you learn about the difference between snakes, you learn about why snakes are the way they are. It demystifies them. It makes them less scary.
But I totally feel for Indiana Jones. Snakes? Why is it always snakes?
Well, except that like he fell in with a bunch of legless lizards because but it's fine. Yeah. But yeah, so I just thought it was very funny that these studies just are always coming down the pike, and it's just like, Yeah, I don't know. There's not really a lot of new information here other than that, like, yeah, like kids are impressionable, which we knew already.
And I think the kids are impressionable, but there are many examples of kids being exposed to snakes and bugs and spiders, all sorts of things, and then growing up to be, or at least once they're past those young ages, actually more hesitant and timid as they get older. Something happens, right? Who knows what it is? And then maybe even adults, as you go through so many phases, and I think it's exposure throughout your life.
Yeah.
And if you are able to be in a situation where you have positive learning experiences throughout your life, you're going to have a much better just general feeling about these animals. You're going to know more. And so it's not going to be just broad categorization. Bugs are gross.
Yeah.
Snakes are snaky.
I got snakes are slimy so often, and
they're not slimy.
Depending on who I was talking to, I could get really snarky because it's not possible for them to be slimy because they have watertight skin. That's why they're considered a reptile and not an amphibian. And so they can't emit slime. They can't do anything like that. They're actually quite smooth. They are sweat.
They're so smooth. And I think that's the problem, is that, like, I would love to just pet them, and I think I would annoy them too much. So
if you're nice and calm, they'll chill out on your hands for hours. It's all about, just being calm and being warm.
Yeah.
Cold hands, not their favorite.
Anyway, I mean, I think all kids should have the opportunity to have great experiences with reptiles, bugs, all these.
Yeah. And if you're a parent and you don't like reptiles, that's okay. But send them to a camp where they're going to hold some snakes.
Yeah. And they don't have to do it around you. You can,
exactly.
Say, okay, be with this guide at a museum or wherever that you are. I'll turn around for a few minutes and trust it's going to be okay.
Yep.
Yes. Trust me. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, moving on from the way people think about snakes, I want to talk about, it's not acid rain. No. But there's a new chemical rain. It's not, it's chemical rain because these little molecules are up in the atmosphere and they fall and they're brought down through the condensation cycle in rain, snow, etc. Wasn't it great that we put global work into trying to get rid of the ozone hole, right? Got rid of CHCs.
CFCs, yeah.
CFCs.
Yeah.
We got rid of these chlorofluorohydrocarbons, which were mopping up ozone and causing a problem, more cancer in Australia, etc. But we used other chemicals that were supposed to be safer, or at least not CFCs. And the problem is that they weren't regulated either. Yeah. And so now researchers at this research led by a team at Lancaster University have calculated how much pollution has accumulated worldwide from the cycling of these other chemicals. So the molecule that they're looking at are these trifluoroacetic acids, and there were about 335,000 tons of trifluoroacetic acid deposited between 2000 and 2022 on the Earth's surface. So now from that, they're able to start looking at where the emissions are coming from and different TFA production from different sources and estimate where they will go in the future. We also still have refrigerants and CFCs that are being released. And so it's really good to find other molecules that could be working. However, a lot of them are still fluorine gases. So there's a lot of not CFC TFA producing molecules out there that are getting into the atmosphere whenever you put on deodorant.
Oh
So
boy.
yeah, and guess what? Guess what? A lot of them are turning into and falling to earth as
Oh no. What?
perfluoroalkylated, whatever the S is. Yeah, alkydes. So PFAS, the forever chemicals, alkyl substances. Yes. So the TFAs, they are PFAS chemicals. And so instead of ozone holes, we are causing forever chemicals to rain down on us. And so the question of how's that getting in people? How'd that get in our water supply? Well, we made it rain on us.
But not
we,
via nonstick coating, via other things that we're releasing into the atmosphere, and then they're combining into
so propellants. So instead of
Yeah.
using CFCs, we are using other HFs.
Gosh, I already
And
gave
so-
up my nonstick pan, but now it's happening anyway.
It's happening anyway. I mean, the nonstick pan is great because that is in contact with your food, and that is something that you have control over. And this is different because it's not necessarily only in the products that we use with propellants in them, so those aerosol cans, etc. It is also going to be in other containment units, maybe at manufacturing scale. And so there are places where they're looking to determine where the sources really are coming from. But basically, what they're saying is that the replacements that we have decided to use instead of CFCs are these TFAs that are causing PFAS, and it's raining on us. So good job, everybody.
What do we need propellants for, really?
No ozone hole, but no babies either. No, sorry.
Oh, yikes. I mean, I guess that's actually
Cancer
good.
and no reproduction. What? We're so good at being good. I love us.
No, why do we have to spray things at all? We didn't used to.
I mean, you don't need aerosol propellants to spray things. There are ways to create containers. It's just,
You don't need
plastic,
spray
PFAS, whatever. Yeah.
deodorant. There are sticks for that.
I mean, when you use spray deodorant, you are inhaling that.
Yeah.
Like I don't know about that. I also the spray sunscreen. It is very convenient, but oh dear.
It's in that? No.
Yeah, because the spray, there's some spray cans that just spit it at you and you still have to rub it on.
Yeah, why?
And those are not using aerosol.
Why can't we just use that? Why can't we just do that? Just put things in spray bottles. Why do you have to have propellants?
You can find the ones with spray bottles, but we have to, as consumers, put pressure on the manufacturers.
How do you even know? Kiki, how do you know? Do you know, do you have any guidance for us consumers on how to not buy things that have these propellants in them?
I have none.
Just don't buy things that spray.
Right. I don't know.
Oh geez. Hairspray now too. Back to no hairspray. Okay.
Hairspray, shaving cream, you have to look at your products. The problem is the majority of people are not chemists, and we do not know all of the compounds that are on the back of the bottles that tell us this important information, right? And so the best we can do is buy products that are sustainable and sustainably in glass bottles. I mean, I don't know what to do anymore. Everything that we live in is made for convenience and is bad for us. I mean,
goodness. Yeah. I'm kind of sick of being told what I want versus telling companies what I want also. I think that's part of this, is that I'm feeling very much, I brought this up recently, I'm going to bring it up again because I keep thinking about it, that we are we are consumers. We are no longer customers. And it is a different viewpoint. So because you are a consumer, not a customer, you are a person to consume what has been made, not a customer to serve with what I want. And so it's more profitable.
And the economics.
Yeah, it's more profitable to be a consumer, to deal with consumers than customers, because you can create in bulk and you can sell in bulk and you can tell people what they want instead of them going to the corporation and saying, this is what I want. And so I think that's also part of this is what's easier to make, what can they market in a particular way, what is cheaper to make, right? What can they pad the real ingredients with propellants so that they say that it has a certain number of ounces, but some of it isn't even the stuff that you want.
But we've been talking about this kind of stuff related to the chemicals in our lives on this show for a couple of decades now, which is wild to be able to say. And in that time, we have seen the Environmental Protection Agency change its regulation and policy over and over again. And it got better and better. And now it is getting worse again, because what we see is the willful ignorance of scientific evidence in favor of profitable economy. So, and this isn't to say that scientific evidence can't lead us in a direction that will lead to a more profitable economy, but there is the prioritization of profit at all costs as opposed to searching for the best sustainable way forward. And so as we're sitting here in the last week, the Environmental Protection Agency has gotten rid of the emolument. Is it the emoluments clause? No, the clause that made looking at carbon dioxide as a pollutant.
That said that climate change is bad for you and carbon dioxide is the cost, basically.
And that was inconvenient to business.
Progress is progress.
And so, I mean, we can keep going back to how much you like or don't like Al Gore and the way he presented things over the years, but the inconvenient truth, he titled his presentation absolutely accurately. And I think that I hope that more people are seeing that now. We're at a point where people are really, really all for themselves or all for their profit or their friend's profit, and it's at the detriment of the common good. And when the common good is damaged, as it is being damaged, then is our economy really the thing that is it going to stay okay? Like it's not a working system anymore. But anyway, I am a systems biologist, a physiologist. So what do I know about systems and balance and homeostasis and sustainability and ecosystems? And oh my gosh. Yeah. So anyway, I get upset a lot. So thanks for bringing that up.
Well, anyway, don't listen to the corporations telling you to buy all these spray bottles. Look around, see if you can buy something that's not gonna contaminate our water.
I mean, there's so many choices that we can make differently. And if, like you said, if we look at ourselves as customers, not just consumers, we have power. The way there is purchasing power, and customers change company directions all the time, and we don't have to be led, we can lead with our wallets, right? Because isn't that always the bottom line? Anyway, moving on from invisible PFAS like raining on our heads to offshore wind farms, which I think are fantastic. But a recent research just looking at offshore wind farms and how they impact wind and current flows wherever they are placed, I think is really fascinating. And you can look at this study that was published in Communications, Earth and Environment as a potentially negative thing, or you can look at it as more information that could improve the way that offshore wind farms are built and designed. And so the study itself looked at the question of, like I said, how do they change air and wind currents? And these structures, because of the fact that you've got these blades going around and around, they actually do impact the wind and the current flow because of the drag and the way that the wake of the wind comes off of them. So as the turbine, the windmill is spinning, it changes the airflow. And as the airflow changes, it also changes the water flow. And so in this whole disruption, which people could look at as a negative thing, I think it's actually something that could be very positive if we understand how we could use it to our benefit, because we have climate change and we have disruptions. We're already talking about geoengineering and doing things like,
There's a
you know,
hurricane coming. Set up all the windmills.
right? And move the windmills. No, but if the windmills are designed with knowledge and foresight of air and water flow, it could actually be more efficient
So, Kiki,
and better for the environment. I don't know. What? Why is your head in your hands?
if windmills impact the wind and the currents, which I get it. Okay. Wouldn't airplanes?
Oh yeah.
Uh-huh.
Right.
So
But
like when
we care more about the windmills because they're opposite fossil
right.
fuels.
When the like 300 private jets took off from SFO following the Super Bowl last weekend, like
that's a big
maybe
deal.
did that impact wind around
SpaceX launches
the Bay Area?
like, not all over things we do.
So
we
I don't
punch
want to
holes.
what about this, but there is part of me that's like, okay, but it's convenient to be mad about the windmills.
I hear
But
you.
there's other things that we're doing that are also impacting the wind, but not things that you want to change. So we don't want to get rid of the airplanes. So those are fine. Also skyscrapers and, lots of things that we do impact the wind. Like, so where is the line? Like, where is
That's a great question.
Industrialization impacts an environment? End of story. Like, so is it causing harmful disruptions to humans or ecosystems, or is it just changing the landscape? Like, what's the appetite for change? What's the threshold? Like, obviously, if you pave where there used to be a forest and put up skyscrapers, you've impacted that space.
That's obvious.
But it feels like such a weird gradation of like, well, this is okay, but that's not okay.
But I think that's the point I'm also trying to make about, like, we could look at this study just as this is what they looked at and this is the result, right?
Right.
But people are going to look at this and cherry pick the data for whatever bias
100%
they want. And so knowing that there is an entire mechanism against offshore wind in the United States right now, I think that it's important to bring up the other side of this, which is that knowing the impacts of wind turbines on the environment that they are placed in is going to be important for understanding how they're going to need to be serviced, how they are going to potentially change storm surge, how they're going to change sedimentation along the coast where they're placed. And if there's sedimentation, a change in currents, that also means it's going to impact if there's any coral reefs, if there's fisheries, if there are, it'll impact the ecology of that water ecosystem.
But of course, also, like offshore wind farms also create artificial reefs.
Right. So this is where we need to talk about what we learn. And this is the most important thing. And I think my title of the show also is like, when can we know enough? When will we know enough, right? We can never know enough,
Never. Yeah.
but we can always try and learn as much as we can to make the most informed decision. And so understanding that we have an issue now with climate change that is fossil fuel driven. Can we get away from fossil fuels with sustainable energy? If we're going to use sustainable energy, how can we place it in a way that will not impact our survival in such
Right.
a detrimental way
Right.
as fossil
It's
fuels have,
comparative
right?
analysis, right?
Right.
You're like, if you remove the threat from the greenhouse gases, then is the new threat from changing the wind from offshore wind farms equivalent to? Is it less than? Is it much less than? I have a feeling that it is.
Mhm.
But similarly, like nuclear plants, is it cleaner in terms of greenhouse emissions? Yes.
Mhm,
Does
mhm.
it take a lot of water? Yes. Does it take over physical space when you can no longer use that area anymore and it's out of commission? Yes.
Mhm.
So like you have to look at the comparative analysis and say like for me, especially knowing that space is finite, the nuclear option is problematic to me. But I haven't done the statistical analysis, right? Like that's the part where this gets super nerdy and people tune out because it's not as
Mhm.
interesting. But this is where it really has to be is you have to figure out like unless we all go live in a hut with our with candles, we are going
What?
to have an impact
Yeah.
on our environment. What is the best
Mhm.
version of that
Everything.
impact?
So what
Right?
I think is amazing is that we are able to have this conversation now. 100 years ago, it was still questionable whether humans had an impact on the environment. It was still not decided 100 years ago. People debated mining, fishing, all these things. Oh no, the earth abides.
Drop in the bucket. Yeah.
We're supposed to be, from Western Christian religion dogma, that we're supposed to be taking care of the earth, right? And so the earth was made for us, and so anything we do to it is fine. And so we have to look at the fact that we are still fighting the use of the planet from these perspectives of it's all mine, it's all ours. They're old perspectives
Yeah.
as opposed to we share this place together and need to take care of it. They're very different ways of looking at this planet we have, at
Yeah.
everything. I don't know. I think
Well, and ultimately,
we
yeah.
need to shoot nuclear waste off the planet into meteors or not meteors,
Into the
into
sun.
yes, let's do it. Why
It's
not?
I mean, but we can't do that too much because then the mass of the earth will change over time
Not
if
that
we
much.
set
It's just
anyway.
it's very little. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that, it is ultimately that there's too many of us. We have beat disease in a way that nature did not intend, which is
Mhm.
great for us.
It's
But
great
it
for us.
has caused a lot of problems. We figured out how to solve infertility for a lot of people. We've figured out how to live longer. We have done a lot of things, figured out how to, make food production more efficient, where we have exceeded our carrying capacity over and over and over again. And just
I
like with
know
any species, when that happens, there is a negative impact on the environment they're in. And
and so
so here we are.
yeah, and there has been a question about carrying capacity, for those who don't know, is the capacity of an environment to carry all the species that it can. So at sustainability levels where you have parity, right? You don't have any growth, you don't have any death. It's doing great. Everything's happy. Um, and it's always been seen for species that we've been looking at ecologically. You can see there have been studies on the carrying capacity of environments, and we see busts and booms of deer and their predators and of rabbits and their predators. We see over and over again this issue of what happens when there's too many and then there's not enough food and that yeah, we've seen it over and over again. And yet we have not been able to apply this principle to ourselves on this planet.
No,
but
we're
there
special.
are individuals, but in the 70s, there are individuals who talked about the population bomb and tried to make it a big deal. And there are a lot of individuals who decide not to have children as a result of knowing and understanding that we are living unsustainably on this planet as a whole. Even though there are some individuals who live more sustainably than others, some groups that do, as a whole, we have allowed people to become the cogs of industry and economy, to be the driver of humanity without any attention, or not enough attention, to the resources in the world, the planet that we live on. And all the answers now are, we're going to make technology and leave the planet. We're going to make technology and go somewhere else and get resources. We're going to do this. And I am happy if some people want to do that. But come on, we are now over 8 billion people on this planet, and you're not going to move everybody off the planet. I mean, I don't know. Today I came up with a thought that it was the CEO of OpenAI said, that AI is the future, and if you don't adopt it, you're going to get left behind. So scarcity mindset and fear, emotion targeting. And all I thought was of the Left Behind series and the Rapture. And I kind of thought, I was like, man, if AI is the Rapture, can I have your car? Like, I'm all there.
Yeah.
Like,
your car that
seriously?
doesn't drive itself, so that when the Wi-Fi goes down, your car is dead.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I am all about old school car technology, and let's update it and figure out how to make it better. But I do not need a computer in my car. Okay. No. I'm going retro, Blair. It's happening.
Yeah.
Anyway.
As you should.
And I'm gonna put a windmill on my property. No, I'm going retro, like all the way back to ancient Rome right now.
Oh.
In ancient Rome, there was a fabric known as the golden sea silk. And the golden sea silk came from the sea. And we've had stories over many years, many decades.
Oh, no, this is going to be gross, isn't it?
It's not gross. Well, kind of. I mean, it depends on what you find gross. But this golden sea silk was like, we still have some representatives of it. They're really important in archaeology and our history, but it was only the rich, the emperors, the really, really fancy people in ancient Rome who got to have cloaks and fabrics, clothing that were constructed using fabric made of this golden sea silk. Now, the sea silk, apparently, like there was a story years and years ago in the BBC, but all over the place, about a woman in Greece who is one of the last people to be carrying down the secrets of weaving the golden sea silk. So this woman, Vera, she was an older lady, and apparently because it is so, like, it's got like reverence. You give it as a gift. You create the silk, you make the fabric, you create the thing, and you give it as a gift. This woman had given objects like to the Pope, had given stuff to many famous, important celebrity people through the years, never asked for money at all. So she had no money to even have a studio to sew and make her golden sea silk. But in Greece, she is the last person, and she's supposed to like pass it down to her child. And her child's like, I don't know. I don't want it to go extinct, but I have my own life. So anyway, there's other researchers out there who were like, this is really cool. And they realized that the type of clam that was being used that is endangered in the Mediterranean They couldn't be used or can't be used to create this sea silk any longer, really at a large scale. But how could we continue to create this fabric? So they found another fabric, another clam that they were then which is used a lot in South Korea. It is used, it's used all over the place. Atrina pectinata, this pen shell clam. It's a farmed clam, and these clams get big. So the thing about the original clam is they grow to like 4 feet across, and they create these clam spit hairs that attach them to surfaces. The byssus.
Okay.
Is it the byssus? Blair, is that how you say it? The byssus? Anyway, this
The byssus.
Byssus, I think is how it is spelled and pronounced. But
Oh.
this compound is fibrous,
Yeah.
and it's basically
Oh, yeah,
solidified
byssus,
clam
yeah.
spit. And the solidified fibrous clam spit, they used to in ancient Rome. They dive into the waters, go down, slice off the hairs, take them back, and then process them, and eventually turn them into thread that they could then weave and create a fabric from. Now, researchers in South Korea at South Korean researchers at the Environmental Research Institute and Post-Tech, they published in a journal called Advanced Materials their work getting this other farmed, non-endangered clam to be able to be used to create the fabric. And they were able to. And so they showed over many, many years that Atrina pectinata, that its fibers, its byssus threads that are used to anchor itself, very similar to the other species. They were able to take the silks, process them, and create fabric. But not only that, they were able to show that they could create the fabric in and manufacture it. So create a production process that could be used to create more of this fabric. So we may be seeing sea silk fabric products all over the place. But one of the cool things about this stuff is that it's not dyed. The golden color of this silk, which is so valuable and exciting, is based on the structure of the fibers. And so the fibers have a spherical protein known as photonin, and the proteins, based on how you weave it, can create the appearance of golden, based on how you create the fibers. They appear gold, and there can be other colors that kind of shimmer and come out of it, but it's not dye. It's just the structure of the fibers.
This is really interesting. I think that I'm confused as to how the byssus threads can actually be woven, because they're not coming out of like hair follicles. So it's
No.
not like you'd expect to see like an individual strand that you could like pull out and then combine with some others to weave them into like a thread or a yarn. So it just comes out of a gland. So
Yes.
So that's the part I'm really struggling with, is how the heck you take secretions.
They are fibrous secretions,
They're
though.
fibrous, but
Yes.
I don't foresee them being like single continuous fibers like hair.
They are
messier than
fibrous.
that.
It's messy. Yes, absolutely messy, but that's part of the processing and
Right.
moving.
That's
There's
why it just seems like very complicated. But also,
Anyway,
I don't think you can harvest these. How do I say, like, continuously from the same individual?
I think you can, though, because they continue. It's like cows make milk. They don't make a lot of these fibers, but if you take their fibers away, they'll make new ones because they need them for attachment. And so there's a story in the BBC from, I don't know, a decade ago about this woman. And would say that she's been her family has passed down this process for over 1,000 years. And the sea silk has been around for 5,000, which is really cool. But what she would do is go dive down and harvest. And it says in the story, it takes about 100 dives to harvest 30 grams of usable strands.
Huh.
So it's not, in the wild, not farmed, they're not getting a lot, right? But if you have farmed clams, it could be, and because these are farmed clams, this byssus is a waste product. So in being able to take advantage of the waste product, they're not throwing it right back into the sea or into a, whatever. This is now something that can be used that could not be used previously.
Interesting.
Yeah. But anyway, is this where the golden fleece came from?
Maybe.
I don't know. I think it's so cool.
Huh.
Yeah. Ah, old clam spit. Who knew? Who knew?
Oh, yes. My vestments are made of the finest clam spit.
Mm-hmm. The finest. So light, so airy.
Spit from the foot, of course. Where else?
Secreted. No. All right. This secretion is This Week in Science. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode. And if you are enjoying the show, please make sure to tell a friend. Please get somebody else to get excited about being curious about the world, talking about science, and signing up, subscribing to TWIS on one of our platforms. We'd really appreciate that. Our website, twis.org, has links that you can click on. Our Zazzle store, that'll take you to find all the cool merchandise that's out there, and our Patreon community, where you can support TWIS in an ongoing fashion, monthly or on a yearly basis, whatever works for you at whatever amount. Any amount helps. $10 and more a month, and we'll thank you by name at the end of the show. We really can't do it without you. Thank you so much for your support. And coming on back right now, it is time to talk about the menagerie. Oh, yeah, Blair's Menagerie. Blair's Animal Corner.
She loves our creatures, great and small. Biped, millipede, no pet at all. You want to hear about animals? She's your girl. Except for giant pandas and squirrels. Blair's Animal Corner.
What you got, Blair?
I have frog calls, which this story is really just an excuse to have Kiki play some frog calls, hopefully.
Yeah, I hope so. My plan.
Hey, temperature affects the quality of male frogs' mating calls. That's fine. Males show up early in the mating season to practice en masse. And so they don't really have to be at peak singing strategy until it's showtime. And at that time, things get warmer. This is a study from UC Davis. Hey. I know you're listening out there. They found that in colder early weeks of spring, the frog songs start off sluggish, and in warmer weather, they pick up the pace, and female frogs prefer the quicker, more melodic calls from warmer weather. Better songs not only make more attractive males, they've just over time, there's been evolutionary pressure to the better songs doing better in mating choice. But they also suggest to a female that the environmental conditions are correct for reproduction. So if everybody's sounding better, that means, hey, it's time to start the family.
Huh.
But as with anything that is temperature dependent, climate change is tending to throw this out of whack. And the majority of this study focused on earlier warm periods, which makes sense. Especially in California, we experience a lot of that. But climate change is also causing sudden onset of cold at a time after there's been a warming period. So I think that, knowing this, there's a lot of potential negative outcomes related to climate change. So for one, as ponds warm, male frogs, they're going faster. They almost sound desperate. And apparently you could hear it with your human ears. So like if you live somewhere or work somewhere where you hear frogs every day, pay attention. You might hear them start to call in the early spring, and then kind of they get louder and better and faster, and it's warming up. But I think the thing is that as this warming happens in areas where, it's getting warmer earlier, the quote unquote sexier calls are coming earlier too. So there's different things that can happen there. One, the females can miss completely. Maybe they come at the wrong time after all the males have given out the best calls. Two, maybe it's a false signal, especially if it's not going to be warm consistently. It might be a signal to the females it's time to start a family. She mates, she lays her eggs, and then bam, there's a cold snap. Or it doesn't continue to get warmer in the way that it has statistically. But also, if it's cold at a time when it's normally warm, the calls are not going to be as good. Females may not choose to mate because it sounds like it's the wrong time, even though it's actually the right time to start a family. So there's lots of opportunities for this to cause the timing of mating and the time of reproduction to be completely out of whack. And of course, this is a big problem for frogs because around 41% of amphibian species are threatened or endangered with extinction. They are the most endangered vertebrate class. And there's a lot of reasons for that. It's just that they're fragile. They're called environmental indicators because they respond quickly to pollutants. They breathe through their skin, so water impurities are an immediate problem. These sorts of things, just the fact that their mating processes often are very specific. And so all of that together means
Can you hear
it
it?
is. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good.
All of that together means that knowing that temperature is impacting frog calls also means we can anticipate how climate change can have a negative impact on them. And of course, the next step after that is trying to figure out what to do to help them. So,
oh, that's
so
such a
much
difference.
slower. Yeah.
Wow, it's like somebody put a post-processing filter on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Ah.
it's drastic even to our ears. So obviously that's going to have an impact on female frogs as well.
Such an impact.
Yeah.
It's but it's the frogs themselves that are cold, and it's not just the atmosphere that's attenuating the sound differently.
Right.
Because it's a different
So set up a bunch of heaters around the swamp. What could go wrong? Oh, no, wait. That's not right. Set up a bunch of fans. No, that's not.
I mean, wind turbines?
Yeah. Yeah, set up some wind turbines.
Wind turbines. We'll change it up. It'll be great.
Man.
Yeah. Frogs are also indicator species. And so it's really important to be paying attention to how early, like you were saying, how early their song changes.
Yeah.
I mean, people look all the time at how early birds arrive or when flowers are blooming, right? And so, this migratory species, it's 2 weeks early, suddenly, over time, now it's this much early. It's not being there at the right time. So if we're looking or listening to our environment as well, maybe we can be a part of seeing much more about how climate change is impacting our environment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that keep your ears out, listen for the frogs, and just know this is one of the many ways that climate change impacts animals. I think it's pretty interesting. Speaking of mate selection, I wanted to talk also about the zebra finch.
Sweet.
I know, always welcome in this corner of the internet.
Always.
And it is about stubbornness, is how the researchers put it. But really, it's about preference. Okay. So zebra finches breeding colonies in Australia. They build intricate dome-shaped nests. And one of the reasons they're excellent research birds is that they are happy to build nests in the laboratory year-round. And they'll use different materials that you give them. So it's a good opportunity for a lot of iterations of watching them build their nest. Usually it's the males that build the nest. Females will sometimes tweak the nest, but for the most part, the male makes the nest. And so in previous studies, they've shown some color preferences or materials preferences. And so this study wanted to look at that color preference a little closer. So they measured each male's color preference first. They wanted to see, what colors do you like to use to make your nest? They presented them with blue or yellow string, for example, and recorded how long the male interacted with each of them. From that, they calculated a preferred color, but also how strong the preference was. Did they only build with yellow? Did they use 90% yellow? Did they not even look at the blue? Or did they hem and haw? Did they pick up the blue and put it down? So these are all measurable. And their hypothesis was that a bird that spends 95% of his time with blue is very different from one who splits his time 60-40. And so his behavior will be different. And his preference will be a different strength, is the expectation. So then they placed the male and female partner into a population where there were 4 other pairs of already incubating eggs in nests. So the nests were done. And those nests varied. In some populations, all of them were made with the preferred color of the male. In others, most were built from the non-preferred color. And in one condition, all 4 nests were the color that the male didn't want anything to do with.
Oh man, you put me in the blue neighborhood?
Yeah,
What?
exactly. And so the observer male watched these nests and the birds tending to them for several days, and then he was returned back to his own cage, gave him both colors, and let him build. So what do you think happened? Do you think his preference changed?
I don't know. This is a really interesting question because, okay, so zebra finches learn their song in their first summer, in their first year. And so the song they learn is from tutors. And so they are learning, they have a song that's kind of in there instinctually, but they learn their song from tutors. And so their song is matching their tutor song to what's inside their head, and they create their own kind of song. But it all sounds to our ears tweedledee, tweedledee, like the zebra finch. But they have tutors, so they're paying attention. Additionally, they're looking at what other females like with the males made. So another piece of information is that zebra finches will mate for very long periods of time. They can be monogamous, but they are not a monogamous species. They can be polygamous, but they're also not stuck to only doing mating and nests once a year. They're not just springtime breeders because they're from a more equatorial, or they're from zebra finches are from more equatorial areas. And so they nest year round. So they could be picking up tricks all the time to woo the ladies. So I don't know, Blair.
Well, it varied basically, which is why you don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but it did depend on how strong their preference was before they went in the room, which was the hypothesis here, right? So the males who had weak preferences were more likely to conform to the new favorite in the room that they visited. They were like,
Mhm.
oh, everyone's wearing blue now. I guess I'll get some blue. If most nests they observed were built from their non-preferred color, they were more likely to switch and use that color moving forward. But the males that had very strong initial preferences largely ignored the majority that they observed. They saw the information, they had the opportunity, but they did not copy it. And so birds did pay attention to the social information. When the majority used their non-preferred color, the males who were returned to make their own nest were more likely to first touch that color. So they noticed it. But then a lot of them were like, no, I'm still going to use the yellow. So they thought about it. They were like, oh, they've been using that color over there. Let me go.
But I like yellow.
Yeah, I still like
I'm
the
gonna use
yellow.
yellow. I mean, I know what they do, but it's like noticing that everybody wears Nikes, but you like Adidas. You know.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, what
So cute.
what
I swear
mattered?
they gave these birds designer apartments. This
They
is
did.
beautiful.
They're
Oh
really
my
good.
gosh.
Yeah.
Like if for people in the podcast, they've got beautifully coordinated pink backgrounds, pink walls with a pink nest and pink yarn for the nests. Bright pink. It's gorgeous. And orange or yellow, like the colors, they're all coordinated and it's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, they really
look
did it
great.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
They could come design, decorate my house. That'd be great. Mhm.
So ultimately what was happening was there was an interaction between their social environment and the strength of their original bias. And so acquiring social information and actually using it are two different things. They acquired social information, but some of these individuals chose to ignore it. And so I think this is showing that zebra finches in particular, they don't necessarily blindly follow the crowd. Some will conform, some will not. The difference depends in part on how strongly their initial preference was. So this is part of culture. This is why, like, we all don't look exactly the same. We have preference. They're calling it stubbornness, but like we have preference. And so we look at what's popular and we take what we like from it, but we keep the things that we like. I wore bell bottoms at a time that it was not in fashion because I liked my bell bottoms, right? Like it was in fashion at some time, but then I kept them because I liked them. So culture is built from individual decisions. And so this culture is made up of individuals who make their own choice about how to make their nest in this context. And so even when an entire room is blue, a yellow-loving bird would stick with yellow. So there's that tension, the push-pull of kind of centralized conformity versus individualistic preference. And so, yeah, go ahead.
I would love to know how this maps on to boldness or other aspects of individuality, like intelligence or memory. Like, so the work that I did with zebra finches, looking at learning and memory, there were some individuals who were definitely better at doing the memory task than others. And I don't know if it's because they were smarter or more motivated or whatever. I mean, some obviously just were like, I'm going to do this. They were motivated and they did it. And others were just like, they'd sit on the perch and they didn't care. But that was how they were. They were consistent in those reactions. No matter what I did, they were going to do their own thing. So I wonder how that maps onto this behavior as well.
Yeah.
Is it consistent or is it dependent on the behavior?
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. Really good question. Also, I appreciate that at the end of this article, the researchers mentioned They focused on male preference because the male is usually the one who collects and deposits the material. But females do things to tend to the nest. They will rearrange things. Sometimes they'll even take things out that the male brought and go, not this, and toss it out of the nest. And so the next stage of this study is to explore how female bias might shape nest building outcomes. So are they as easily swayed by their neighbors? Do they have the same stubbornness or strong preference that impacts how they tend to their nest? I really hope that we see a sequel soon to this paper and we can talk more about it because, of course,
That'd
it's
be so
just
cool.
interesting. Of course, it's just interesting. But in zebra finches in particular, they're a really good model species for a bunch of reasons. And so that you can extrapolate this information into other social birds, into other social species, into humans to a certain extent, right? And whenever you do that, it's always kind of like, I don't know. But there is something to be said here for social learning and how perhaps up to this point, we've measured social learning by a success in conformity, but maybe the social learning was there. They saw it, they understood it, but they did not conform. Yes, exactly. They chose not to take that information and run with it. So is there an extra kind of layer to social experiments with animals that that we maybe have not been examining close enough? I think it's pretty interesting.
And I think, I mean, from an animal behavior perspective, I mean, we can talk about it as, is it actually is it something that animal prefers? Is it a preference? Or is it that animal is less likely to go for novelty? So
interesting.
is it novelty seeking?
Yeah.
So so there are like all these nuances that we could get at. And then, of course my brain goes to, well, we could look at like, neurotransmitters and like, is this dopamine or like what's involved here?
Yes. Yeah. What's the mechanism? You can always take it back to that, which I think is why so many kind of zoological studies are ripe for collaboration with other disciplines. It's because so much of animal science is behavioral, which is really, the stuff that gets really interesting. But at the end of the day, there's something telling them to act that way. And what is it? Is it a chemical signal? Is it a learned behavior? Is it
but it all comes down to chemical signals, but is it when does the chemical signal tell you to do an instinctual behavior versus a learned behavior? So there's the parsing of these mechanisms, and it's us.
Well, and is there a thought process, or is it just kind of like a knee jerk based on some sort of signal? I think that's really what I meant. Is like, is there like a whole domino happening in their brain, dominoes hitting dominoes that lead them to do certain things, or is it just kind of a like signal act, right?
Okay.
Because that's how a lot of animal behavior has been assumed to function for most of human history, and I think we're learning more and more that's not how it is, right?
Right. And so we have these quote unquote model species, right? So you can talk about basic neuroscience. We studied the sea slug, the Aplysia, which is you tap its siphon and it sucks its siphon back in. And we can record that on a major nerve in the Aplysia. And it's like, da, 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 we have nerve signaling. And so it's the Aplysia. And like that is a major model species for studying the basics of neurobiology. Move on to the zebrafinch, which everybody is like, they have a stereotyped song. They're so simple. They're a basic species. They just all are the same, right? And you get to know these birds and they all look the same, but they have different personalities and different little songs. And, our assumed model species are more complex than we have ever given them credit for. And how does that impact all the years of research that we have done, assuming that they're simple?
Yep. Yeah, in fact, in my experience, animals that are difficult to train are often the smartest animals, not the dumbest. So, yeah.
I don't know. I just tried to make them the hungriest, but
Yeah. Doesn't
I
matter if they're
love this.
smart or dumb if they're well motivated.
Mhm. Yeah, I love this study. Thank you for bringing it, Blair.
Yeah, I hope we
Used
hear
such
more.
cool yarn. I want them to I want them to do more work. Come on.
I don't know if those, I feel like those are like press release photos and they're not actually of the
I
experiment.
know. But whatever they did, I think that their work
but
is
they're pretty.
amazing.
Yeah, pretty as heck.
They know how to do media. But this group doing their work, Julia Self, come on, do more zebra finches. We want to talk about it. Let's go. I'm going to finish the show on some brain science. Organoids, brain organoids, you know I love them. Over the last decade, we have seen neuroscientists use cells to model brains, where we used to have to cut tissue out of brains and put it into dishes so that we could look at it. Now we can actually take different cell types without destroying where they came from, really, and grow those cells to create little mini brains. We're not going to talk about the ethics of that right now. What we're going to talk about is the technology that we use to measure the activity in those brains. And historically, the electrodes that we have used for measuring all activity are like the same ones that for the organoids, they're the same ones that we like put on the scalp of your head, which is they're like a flat piece of tape with a bunch of needles sticking up out of it. So it's basically a two-dimensional surface with needles coming out of it. And if you're getting an electrode stuck in your brain, they're going to stick it where they want it, and the needles go in, and that flat surface just sits on top of your brain. And so they just can get, a square rectangular area from the surface of your brain that they can measure and figure out what's happening there. When we do an EEG measuring our brain, we don't have the needles inside. So we're not getting like individual neuronal activity. What we do is we put electrodes all over the top of our brain. And so because we've put the electrodes all over the surface of the brain, we're able to make mathematical associations about where the electrical activity is coming from, because a signal is read on the left side of your brain halfway up, that is read on the left side of your brain kind of a third of the way down. And so they're able to triangulate the signals and be able to get a picture of what's happening. But the resolution isn't great, right? Organoids, they're tiny. So how do you make an EEG for organoids? Right?
You want to squish them.
Right. And historically, it's just been like, put the organoids grow as a ball, a sphere of cells on top of that two-dimensional needle array. And so you just get basically a two-dimensional reading of the organoid electrical activity that is not accurate. So now Northwestern University researchers at the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, they've created these really cool, flexible electronic frameworks that are three-dimensional and have these electrodes in them that are able to wrap around the organoids like a three-dimensional mesh. This is published in Nature Biomedical Engineering, and the researchers are saying that this is a really cool advancement because the mesh, it's a flexible mechanism, and you're able to put the cells, so you can start it all growing with the cells at the bottom of a petri dish, and as the sphere of cells grows, the mesh flexes and grows almost like as if you had a flower opening in reverse, so that it is like a pop-up that engulfs the organoid in the center, so that you then have all these wires and electrodes wrapping around it that can act like the EEG triangulating activity, but because you got a little tiny ball of cells, they're actually getting individual neuron and cell activity in these mini brains. And so they've actually shown that they are able to follow certain drugs being administered and see how they react, and they're really accurate. And so this is
Huh.
it's like a cool metal cap or a little wrapping paper for mini brains that allows us to measure their electrical activity much more accurately, which will let us understand the developmental aspects of neuroscience much better, to help us understand neurodevelopmental disorders better, and also come up with treatments for things. And because mini brains, you can take people's, like yours, if you needed it. Like I could take your brain cells and make a little mini brain that's a
Oof.
mini Blair brain. But then if you needed certain drugs or were trying to figure out what's wrong with you, we can make a mini brain Blair brain and test the mini brains and get really accurate results. And so this is a major advancement, using advanced technologies to be able to give us this new system. And so
Huh.
I think it's super cool. I think this is one of like the coolest, best advancements for science that we've seen
Yeah.
recently.
Yeah, it looks like a dumpling. Delicious. Um, but I think that's really wild. So how does it close?
So it is like a metamaterial. So this metal framework that they're using, it has been designed to move, to end up in these shapes over time. So they're soft shaped electronics.
Sorry,
And
I guess like
yeah,
what triggers it to close?
I think the growth of the sphere and the weight of the sphere pushing down on it. So it begins flat, and then as the sphere of cells grows, it buckles down. And as it buckles down, the edges
Oh,
pop up.
interesting. Huh,
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah. And so in doing this also, it doesn't get in the way of the cell accessing any uh, of the food it needs, being able to breathe. There's lots of transpiration, even though there's not a respiratory system on a bunch of cells. And so it supports it. And the researchers are saying that because they can do this shape, they're thinking of like creating all sorts of different shapes that could create, like, basically house, like, Japanese make square watermelons. Maybe we could make square mini brains that could be put together like bricks.
You just want to play brain Tetris.
They do. I think the researchers do for sure. But with their full 240 channel array, they're able to get oscillatory waves that span the entire organoid and are able to triangulate to give very clear signals of specific neurons and neuronal activity. So it's beautiful, it's cool, and it's going to help us moving into the future, which is amazing. And I know people want to go to bed right now, so I would like to tell you that my last two stories are basically together. How do you keep from getting dementia or Alzheimer's?
Oh, yes, please.
So, the results of a long-term study called ACTIVE, followed 3,000 older adults for 20 years. They found that the adults who were given what they call quote unquote speed of processing training once over several weeks, and then a booster dose later for several weeks again, that they had a 25% reduction in risk of dementia. Speed of processing, they suggest, it's not doing the crossword. It's taking in information quickly and making a judgment. So looking at a visual field, it's like Where's Waldo, but doing it fast. Can you play a card, playing spoons, right? If you've ever played the card game Spoons, where people put down their cards, and when you have a certain card, you grab the spoon, and as soon as you see that other people have grabbed the spoon, you have to grab the spoon, right? So your reaction timing is part of this, but it's being able to discern important information from a large scene. And in this situation of discernment, this study looked at video games or apps and brain training games. And you can do that if you want to have a choice between sitting and doing nothing, staring at the wall, or just watching television and playing a great brain training game. And I'm sure that video games that are active play a role in this as well. But it would also be going outside, going into social situations, using your brain and be practicing awareness and responsiveness to the environment and lots of people and things in it. So that comes to my second study, which I think is very interesting as well. This neuropsychiatry study was published in Neurology, basically showing you should read all your life. You should expose yourself to complex information, puzzles, makes your neurons go. And oh, wow, the longer that you have read or the earlier that you got lots of reading practice in your life, it could cut your Alzheimer's risk by 38%. So, and this was not associated with socioeconomic factors, which I think is very interesting. So it's just you experiencing complexity, learning things, reading things, not staring at walls, not being alone,
Use it or lose it.
Yeah, that's it. Use it or lose it. And it doesn't have to be it's interesting because there is Brain HQ or something, which does contain some of these brain training games that were used in the active study, but they cost money. And so if you don't want to pay money for an app, go outside.
Well, I think that also that feeds into the whole dementia increases, likelihood of dementia increases after retirement. Like one of the easiest ways to ward off dementia is not to retire.
Right.
And it's because you're using your brain.
Interacting with people. You're interacting with the world, using not just your brain, but your body as well. So all you embodied people out there, I hope you use it this week as much as you can and make it back here again next week so that we can hang out. That's science. That's
it is.
That's all I got. And I know you're tired. So let me get us out of here. Are we done?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes, says Blair.
Yes,
we are.
I need to lay down.
I know. I do too. Sorry.
No apologies. Don't apologize for science.
And don't apologize for needing to rest yourself so that you can make another day successfully and happily, or at least to the best of your ability. Taking care of ourselves is really important. It is. So anyway, thank you to Fada for helping to take care of us by doing show notes and social media. Thank you, Identity for recording the show. Thank you to everyone in the chat room for being here as we have been going through the show and for chatting and for having fun with us. And thank you for those of you, Gord, Arnlor, others who helped keep our chat rooms great places to be. I mean, it takes a village to keep a chat room a safe, respectful place to be. Thank you for doing that. And of course, thank you to our Patreon sponsors. Thank you to Aaron Anathema, Adam Mishkan, Alan Viola, Ali Coffin, Andrew Swanson, Autumn, Arthur Kepler, Bob Calder, Bob Coles, Brendan Minish, Baring Carrington, Chris Wozniak, Chris Dreyer, Christopher Rappin, Craig Landon, Crave Potts, Daryl Myshak, Dave Wilkinson, David Youngblood, Don Mundis, Donathan Styles, aka Don Stylo, EO, Eden Mundell, Eric Knapp, Flying Out, Furnace 104, G. Burton, Lattimore, George Korish, Greg Briggs, Jack, Jason Olds, John Atwood, John McKee, John Ratnaswamy, Johnny Gridley, Ken Hayes, Kent Northcote, Kevin Parachan, Kevin Reardon, Kurt Larson, Lon Makes, Lauren Gifford, Mary Gertz, Marjorie, Mark Hessenflow, Mark Jenkins, Noodles, Patrick Pecoraro, Paul Disney, Paul Ronovich, Philip Shane, Pierre Velazarb, Richard Badge, Robert Norland, Robert Farley, Rodney Lewis, Rudy Garcia, Remy Day, Sean Clarence Lamb Shubru, Stephen Alberon, Steve Leisman, aka Zima, Sudoster, Teresa Smith, Tony Steele, and Vegard Schefstad. Thank you so much for your support on Patreon. Please get people you know to help us out on Patreon as well. It would be amazing. We can buy Blair a new pillow. Haha. On next week's show, we actually have an interview.
Oh, okay.
We're going to be talking about astrocytes with Dr. Nicola Fuller from the Salk Institute on next week's show. And yeah, we'll be back.
Great. We'll be back Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific time, broadcasting live from Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook channels with said interview.
Yes. And if you want to listen to us as a podcast, look for This Week in Science wherever podcasts are found. If you enjoyed the show, get your friends to subscribe to.
For more information on anything you've heard here today, show notes and links to stories will be available on our website. That's at www.twis.org. You can also sign up for a newsletter that someday will come, like Godot.
Someday. We love your feedback. If there's a topic you want to cover or address, a suggestion for an interview, let us know on one of our social media accounts at TWIS Science, or send us an email. Just make sure that you put TWIS in the subject line so your email doesn't get spam filtered into Blair. Where would it get spam filtered?
To Mars, where there's, not really anybody to read it. Maybe some dead bacteria, but that's not
some robots.
Not yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. We look forward to discussing science with you again next week. And if you've learned anything from the show, remember,
it's all in your head.
This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth. And I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in 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 Science.